Hi everyone, my name is Sai. I work with Season Watch and the Maharashtra coordinator for the project. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this is something that we're doing for the first time for resource people. We usually conduct sessions to tell about Season Watch or talk about um, tree identification. We do workshops basically, but this is the first time that we are connecting with people who want to conduct tree walks. So today's session will be mostly about how to conduct tree walks, considering you are interested in doing so already. And we won't be talking much about identifying trees or technical information about the trees. So I hope you don't have that expectation from this workshop. And we will conduct similar sessions and sessions specifically for tree identification later on. And please stay in touch with us so that you can get information about such events in the future. So let's begin. Now now that everyone's here and it's finally happening, I'm a little blank right now. But please bear with me. So to tell you about Season Watch, I'm thinking most of you already know about Season Watch, but just to give a quick introduction, Season Watch is a project that monitors seasonality of trees to understand how climate change is impacting the seasonality. So the idea is to keep observing trees around us for many years together and to see how the patterns of flowering and fruiting and the leaf cycle changes over the years because of the varied climatic conditions that we're facing as a result of climate change. And this is a citizen science project, which means people from all over India participate, and they are basically the basis of this whole project. And we want more and more people from India to participate so that we can generate enough data to find good results and understand how India is facing or impacting from climate change. So on that premise, the first thing that we must have is a connection with trees. And what facilitates this connection is tree walks, is what we think, among many other things, of course. So to talk about the India Tree Walks Network, you might have seen this name while talking about this event today. And India Tree Walks Network was started in August last year. And the idea was to connect people who already conduct tree walks or who are interested in conducting tree walks wherever they are in India, and connect them with each other and also with Season Watch so that we can work together to make tree walks more mainstream, just like how bird watching is so popular and people naturally know what to do when one says bird watching. But tree walk is not as popular. So we are hoping it becomes popular. And we also hope to someday do these all over India events like the Great Backyard Bird Count that happens every year and so popular. We hope to do like allot such days for tree walking, and everybody in India is tree walking. That's quite an ambitious goal, but I hope I actually do see it happening someday. So let's get that on that note, let's get this started. For those who are new to the word tree walk, and basically all of us, my perception of tree walk is that it's like a safari. We find an area, a wooded area, a garden, or even a roadside around us where there are many trees, and we dedicate 1 or 2 hours of our time to go out, observe these trees more closely than we usually do, and understand or try to gather information about this. Usually, these tree walks are led by a resource person, somebody who knows a bit about the trees and who's interested in sharing their love for trees so that everybody feels inspired and gathers new information and feels more connected with their surroundings in general. So today we are going to talk to these 5 amazing people that have been conducting tree walks and nature walks and mushroom walks for a while now. And the best way I thought to learn how to do a tree walk best is from to listen to the experienced people. So without spending more time talking about other things, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. We start with this person named Millet Tills for now. Please meet Vijaya Chakravarty. She is based in Mumbai. She is a landscaper and an author. She has written beautiful books for children, and she has mostly worked with children and young adults. She started tree walking in the mid 80s, and she hasn't kept the count, but I'm sure it's an astounding number. So today we'll learn how it went for her and where she began, and many other things. Her aim from tree walking is to help people identify trees and combat this major issue that we face today called tree blindness, which is we look at the greens, we notice there's greenery, but we don't go beyond that to observe them in finer details and understand what exists around us. Next in on the panel is Dr. Jitendra Gavali. He is based in Vadodara or Baroda, Gujarat. He's a director of the Community Science Center, Vadodara. And among many fantastic things that is done in life, he started taking tree walks back in 2006, and he's done about 200 walks. I'm sure it's more than that. And his aim was to introduce identifying trees, plant diversity, plant ecology. He also works with tree plantations and caring for the trees that you've planted, and also river rejuvenation that we will learn about from him today. Next is Kobita Das Kolli. She's a naturalist, and she has also done really fantastic things. She started learning plant sciences and botany, but she's also very interestingly worked as an artist, a designer for Titan watches, which is blows my mind every time I read this sentence in her bio. But she started conducting tree walks in April 2017 through a WhatsApp group, and um, And so since then, she's done about 50-60 tree walks, and her aim is to light the spark of curiosity for trees and share her findings through the tree walks on social media, through her talks, etc. Next is Shrey Gupta, the Mushroom Man. He's based in Himachal Pradesh, and he's a co-founder of EcoVigyan Foundation. He has conducted mushroom walks slash nature walks for 4 to 5 years now, and he's gone on 20 plus walks, which look fantastic if you follow his Instagram and look at the picture that he's shared there. His aim is to create empathy for nature and bridge the gap that we face between us and nature. And lastly, the youngest, Samarrth Khanna. He's based in Delhi, NCR. He's a naturalist and ecological gardener. He started conducting leading tree walks in 2018, and he's done 85 walks so far. And his aim is to introduce people to this fantastic phenomena of plant-animal relationships and also eco-restoration.
Well, I was always brought up, right from my childhood with nature. And I first, started a tree walk, or rather talking about trees, when as a young lecturer in St. Xavier's, we went on a trip to Kashmir. And then I was shocked, because people started asking me about the plants. They couldn't even make out the difference between a chrysanthemum and a rose. And we traveled all the way from by train. We passed Gujarat, and then we went north. We stopped in Punjab, and all along people were asking me about trees. And then I found that they were enjoying what I was telling them, and I was enjoying talking to them and telling them about the trees. And then we landed in Kashmir, and there also it was an amazing thing, because I turned from a lecturer into a tourist, or what you say, naturalist, talking about trees and plants and insects. So that was great fun. And from then, there was no looking back. I discovered that my childhood, had given me such a good base that I knew a lot of plants, a lot of trees, and insects and little birds. So that is how I started, and I've never looked back. Now I concentrate, because I'm in New Bombay. I go take children for mangrove walks, and I'm associated with Indian Women Scientists Association, where we have a learning garden. We have, in fact, over 500 species of plants, different trees. We have an arboretum, so we have different sections. So that is another place where I take the, young and old. I think from toddlers to super seniors, all of them come, and I enjoy being with them. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jitendra sir, would you please answer this question? What was your motivation behind conducting tree walks and also heritage tree walks that you do?
Yeah, actually, it was in 2006 and 7 when I used to work for Trees of Gujarat. At that time, I came across that there are several trees around us, and you know, actually, basically, my PhD is again in green belt design. So, looking at tree with your botanical eyes is like that was there inside me. But then what happened is one of my elder brother, he asked me to identify certain trees, as he used to like he used to travel and come across some flowering plants. So he said me, "Ki you come on Sunday, we'll go and see what type of tree it is there. We try to make sure that whether it is beneficial or not." I started telling the information regarding that tree to my elder brother. He is a distance brother, and then we started, gathering people, friends, and then this is how nature walk started. In officially, it was started in 2008, but before that, we started in 2006, looking at the trees around us. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Kobita, could you please share your experience in motivation for Treewalks?
So I've grown up with the plants around me, gardening very enthusiastically, whether in Chennai or Bangalore, even in Hyderabad. And then when we started the nature and gardening class in activity class in Vidyaranya, that's when we started taking the children actually on tree walk. So that was in 2000, started in 2003. And then slowly, a couple of people said, "Oh, since you're doing it with children, why don't you do it in some institutions like IIIT or College of Defense Management?" So that's when we started taking other people for walks, all sorts of people. And in 2017, we started our WhatsApp group because of a tree walk in the Hyderabad Literary Festival. That was a nice platform because they wanted, something different for people who come for the literary festival in a lovely campus of Hyderabad Public School. So that was a very nice beginning. My partner and good friend Sadhana, she put in a word, and then we started the tree walk, and that was actually quite wonderful because there are 2 baobabs in HPS, and so it was exciting. So that was, that was the beginning. And then we've never looked back. From 2017, we've been doing several tree walks for all age groups, from young to old, and everyone's generally enjoyed it. So it's been great fun. So basically, it's shared appreciation for nature. That is one of the most important things for us. And to have people connect with the world around them, basically.
Lovely. Thank you. Same question next for Shrey. Please share your experience.
Yeah, so good evening. To bring all these people from diverse background in nature walk together.
Yes, we can see and hear you now, Shrey.
Yes. So yeah, I was just saying, Sai, like, first of all, thanks for bringing all the people with such diverse background together, and thank you for making this happen. I'm really excited to be here and be with all the people here. Like, so for me, major factors my identification. So my motivation to conduct talk stemmed from my interest in mushrooms, and because mushrooms are so symbiotic that it's impossible to talk about them without mentioning the trees, of course. So permeate through almost all the plants in the forest, all the trees. And yet, in my experience, there are very few people who understand these connections. So if I share a few common examples, we all might have spotted bracket fungi fruiting on the bark of living trees, for example. So it's like a parasite that's growing on a living tree. Although, like, it's hard to see a tree decaying due to this infestation, but in the longer run, it's like healthy for the forest because it's nature way of taking care of stagnation and monocrop, and it ensures ecological succession. And similarly, like, there are mushrooms that are growing on soil, and most of these mushrooms are actually symbiotic mushrooms that grow on soil. They are symbiotic with the tree which is nearby, and there are actually ways by which you can identify that which tree the mushroom is actually connected with. Similarly, like, you might have seen mushrooms like these, which the one in my hand example, they grow people call it dirt of the world. In India, they call it lakdi fly. They see it with a very negative perspective, and like they are either disgusted by these mushrooms or they completely tend to ignore them. But mushrooms like these are actually the garbage cleaners of the natural world, and without them, our earth would be covered in a pile of dirt. And so all plants and animals, including humans, would actually cease to exist without them. So demystifying, the connections between fungi and trees is really what motivates me to host tree walks. And people are every time thrilled when they join for these walks, and it opens a whole new world of trees for them. So yeah, that's my motivation to do tree walks, nature walks, and mushroom walks. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrey. Samarth, would you please share your story?
Definitely, Sai. So my journey of conducting tree walks, or rather nature walks, started when I was still in school. So it was somewhere between my class 11th and 12th. Remember those back days of boards and pre-boards? So that's when I was exposed to taking tree walks. So it was actually a science project in the school, where the school was willing to educate fellow classmates and schoolmates towards trees and the plants that happen inside the campus itself. But unfortunately, the way it was being done in the school, the children felt all bored, right? So the principal wanted someone who looked like them, someone who talked like them, and someone who understood trees in a manner that they could be shared with students in such a way that they fall in love with them. So somehow the teachers had an idea that this boy has some love for gardening, and he keeps on talking plants even in the classroom. So they quickly picked me up and asked me if you could lead a group of the most notorious and the indisciplined children. But anyway, we ended up having a great time, and the group is still intact. So that was my first chance to lead a tree walk. That was in my school, and the whole idea which I developed over the years when I started going out with my group of young tree walk attendees, right? And also the people that we look at trees as standalone organisms, right? The fact that we need to accept them as a part of the larger system is the need of the hour. So that's what became my motto in the upcoming and the walk that came up after that first walk that I did, that I need to certainly look at the connections, the associations, which trees govern and trees are also a part of.
Yeah, one very interesting walk. This was in Vashi. Vashi, we have an area called the mini seashore. It's a circular walk, and there are mangroves over there. So I took students from Aram. Aram is an institution of underprivileged children who come from different parts of the country, and they live in the largest slum of New Bombay. So I took them for a walk, and I was shocked. They started telling me, so many interesting things over there. There was the sea purslane growing. So I wanted to tell them about sea purslane. I had a little boy, about 7 or 8, who came up to me and he says, we eat this for upwas. When my mother and grandmother have upwas, we're not supposed to eat salt. So this is what is cooked and eaten. And I was amazed. We came to this pili plant, Salvadora persica. And immediately they said, we use this for brushing our teeth. I was amazed at this. This was something, was an eye opener. And in IFSA, we conducted a program called GOKOS. That is a science of growing, cooking, and eating. And I had never grown wheat. I really had never grown wheat. But I had, a boy from UP who said, I will do that. So we had grown some, urad dal, we had grown pudina, we had grown chilies, tomatoes, and the children, after they got the produce, they cooked. So that is what I like to do. Even when I'm taking a nature walk, I carry with me a little, sharbats made out of maybe palash, which grows wild, or parijat, say I make a little kheer or little fried rice, very little I carry with me. Because if you want to stimulate and ask the children to learn, you have to stimulate all their senses. When we come across a parijat tree, I don't allow them to pluck, but I remove one plant and I remove a flower and allow them to smell and also touch. This is like sandpaper. Initially, it was used for sandpaper. So these are little things, stimulating the children. And there is so much knowledge which the children have, which is getting eroded and lost. My experience, I'm born and brought up in Bombay. I found my students who were, just 2 or 3 years younger than me, and my colleagues in college, they didn't know anything. But these little children who had come from the villages, and I'm sure after some time, this will be lost. This is a treasure we need to keep. Yeah, that was one of my fascinating adventures, I would say. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, ma'am. Jitendra sir, do you have any such experience that you would share today?
Yeah, I have such number of experiences because number of tree walks are more. But I would like to tell two or three among them. One is we have one baobab tree, a very huge tree, around 17 kilometers south of our city. There is one a village named Ganpatpura, and over there this tree is growing, and we have growth wise, if you see, we have measured the all dimensions of canopy cover and circumference at breast height, etc. So it's one of the largest tree, probably second largest in Gujarat, our state, because I have worked with the trees of Gujarat as a compilation of all the tree data that was available with the forest department, and I roamed around across the our state, and we have even identified rare endangered trees, etc. So this tree, baobab tree, is having 16.5 meter circumference at breast height. So just imagine how huge tree it is. And we have very frequently been going there. So whosoever comes like guests, special guests. So once in 2016, I do remember on 20th of June, Rima Lagu came in Baroda. She was having some relatives function, okay, some distant relative function. And then we took her, our group around say 15 people or so. We took her to that baobab tree, and then she was amazed to see that tree. And she was then offering her, those sandwiches, etc., to me, because I was only the narrator to tell about that. She was very excited, and she was praising, oh doctor, आपको तो बहुत सारा ज्ञान है, ये ट्री तो हम पहली बार इतना बड़ा देख रहे हैं, that way. So this is one of the kind of experience that I have remembered, because in 2017 she all of a sudden expired. Now she is no more. So that was like remaining like as a remembrance for me. Then another one is one we have one Sayaji word. All the development of Baroda city is because of Maharaja Sayajirao Gai. And when he went in Sri Lanka, he bought banyan sapling from Sri Lanka, and then he planted here. Now that banyan sapling is grown into the biggest banyan in entire Baroda, I should say, district. I've never seen even in rural areas of Baroda this big tree. So I have measured the canopy cover of that, and it is 160 feet in diameter. You just imagine how that canopy cover is looking like. It is from a distance you can make it out as if it is one circus stand. It is that huge tree, but it was planted by Maharaja, none other than Sayajirao Maharaja himself. So it is kind of heritage tree. I also conduct heritage tree walk in our Sayaji garden that has again been given to public in 1881, and then I could locate certain species which are belonging to the forest area. They never been planted in garden, but those trees are being allowed because the garden designer was from the Kew Botanic Garden. So with the sense of conservation of those species, local species, those trees are being left over. So these are my some of the kind of solid remembrances of my tree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kobita, would you please share your memorable experience?
Yeah, I think we've had several instances of memorable moments. But one of the best ones was the HPS, the first HPS walk, Hyderabad Public School, when we went from one baobab to the other. Baobabs are always, they cause this wow moment for people, especially when they come across it for the first time. Subsequently, we've discovered many more baobabs in Hyderabad. So, but yet, every time people meet the baobab, it's always amazing. They just love it. I mean, they just go up to the tree and hug it. It's almost like they want to touch it. So it's wonderful. They want to, join hands and sort of embrace the tree, that sort of thing. So that's one of the best things. The other was a memorable walk. Was our first walk in the scrub jungle, that is very typical of Hyderabad region. And this walk was in the University of Hyderabad, and it was absolutely wonderful. It was the first walk of that kind. Normally we walk in institutions or gardens or parks, but this was one of the first walk in the scrub, and people loved it. So because I love the scrub, and I want people to appreciate what it is, because it's dry for more than half the year. But it's got some fantastic species and wonderful diversity. So that was a great walk. It was absolutely wonderful. Yeah. So I remember those two.
Thank you. Shrey, would you please go next and tell your memorable nature walk or mushroom walk?
Sure, Sai. So for me, like again, like I had a lot of memorable mushroom walks, but like to share my most memorable nature walk, it was a walk that I hosted in last monsoon. But I briefly need to share like a childhood story before I share this experience. So actually, when I was a child, I was very fascinated with wild berries. So I used to enjoy foraging wild berries, and so actually my house is adjacent to a forest area here in Shimla. So in summer and spring season, we used to have a lot of time. They were in red color, blue colored, and orange colored berries. They're very common in Himachal during summer months. So sometimes when I used to, go to bed, I used to be thinking that in the morning I would go to the forest and foray some of these berries. So during the night, I would sometimes dream of, rainbow colored berries, like berries in rainbow colors. Of course, they do not exist, but berries in multicolors and things like these. And I never mentioned these dreams to anyone. But last year, like I had a mind-blowing experience actually during nature walk in the monsoon time. The place was called Nalagarh Biodiverse Forest. And so I oriented the students about, like, this was a mushroom walk. So I oriented them, where to spot mushrooms and how to find mushrooms. So at a particular point, we reached a spot where there was this great diversity of a particular type of mushroom. It's called turkey tail mushroom. And this mushroom that I have in my hand, it's called turkey tail mushroom. And this mushroom, it has, contrasting rings of, it comes in a lot of colors, first of all. And like it has contrasting rings of different colors. So we reached this area, and they were these students who were really excited, and they were spotting these mushrooms all over the place, and they were in different colors. Like they come in shades of brown, yellow, gray, and blue. And there was this small kid, like, who was looking for something very specific, and she was ignoring all the mushrooms that were there. And so I went up to her and I asked her, like, what is she looking for? So she very innocently, like, she told me that she's looking for a turkey tail mushroom that has colors of a rainbow. And at that point, I was amazed. Like it took me back to my early childhood memories where I used to dream of these rainbow colored berries. And I had never shared this story with anyone before this incident. And so somehow something that I was experiencing in my childhood dreams, like this kid was experiencing with her eyes open. So this is something, this is one of the walks that I'll never forget. So this was the most, like from the last monsoon, we have a lot of short stories of different nature walks. So there's a short video, I can share it in the link, where there are very interesting stories. And this has been narrated by a student of 8th class. So I can share it in the chat box later. But that was the most memorable one. Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Samarth, please share your experience as well.
Yeah, definitely every nature walk has some or the other episode which you can never ever forget in your life. But certainly, two of the most memorable incidences. So the first one was we were doing a a nature walk for a group of special kids, right? And the location of the tree walk was surprisingly the Qutub Minar enclave, right? So the Qutub complex where you actually have that monument. And that place surprisingly has some of the most beautiful and most old trees which Delhi has. And so possibly with the monument, a lot of the old trees have also gained that protection. So the walk was happening there with the special kids. The walk was extremely experiential. And I still remember that this little girl who just, walked down to an old Salvadora tree, put her arms around those little arms of that little girl around the tree. And she very gently kept her cheek on the trunk, and she was all in tears. Right? So the fact that trees trigger emotions not just in people who are going through disturbed lives, but also to the children who may be living lives very, very differently as compared to others. So the fact that people and humans, in fact, or any organism on this planet, the way it is able to relate to a tree and is able to express and communicate in a language which no one, on this earth can define or put into words, is something which has been always fascinating. And that's what I think governs and brings people again and again to the nature walks that we all do in this panel. Right. And the second nature walk that I did was actually quite surprising for me. So that was just in March this year when we did a series of two nature walks for the G20 event. So we actually had the delegates from the 20 G20 countries and the 10 guest countries. And it was a proud moment for all of us to share the biodiversity of our beautiful country with the guest countries of those 20 nations. We were also really honored to have the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi with us, along with the ambassadors of all the and the high commissions of all the guest countries. So the moment when you start sharing the beauty and the conservation history of your country, the beautiful wetlands that Delhi and NCR boasts, of the beautiful Aravali's that we have, right? That is certainly a proud moment when you are able to communicate conservation along with the trees. So these were my two memorable walks with the G20 delegates, the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, and also that little girl who literally changed the way I also looked at trees and the communication, the cosmic communication, I call it, which happened. So yeah.
That was beautiful, both of them. Thank you, Samarrth.
Just this thing before, he was talking about special children. We work with a lot of special children, and communication is very important. So I was talking in Hindi. Hindi is not my forte. Marathi and English is. So I had this little Parsi boy. We were in Worli. We were going for a walk. Showing the trees, and then he stopped me there. And he tried to say something I couldn't follow. Then his friends understood him perfectly. This boy had difficulty in walking and talking. So he said, "Ma'am, don't speak in Hindi. Either you speak in Marathi or English." So communication is very, very important. We need to look at whom we are addressing, and tailor our whatever we are talking to suit that, those people. Well, most of my walks are through organizations, either Friends of Trees or Origin BNHS or RM, different. So that is how. So I have not really, organized any walk. But there are certain things I follow, because earlier when I started, now when what we do is we first show them something and then take them for a walk. This is one way we work. We show them a little presentation and then we take a walk. Or sometimes the other day there were about 250 school children, at the around 10 to 11. And just imagine, I was a single person there. So I made a huge flip chart, a large flip chart. And so I had some couple of friends who were with me, and then we were showing, and it was pin drop silence, because the pictures were huge. It was all about mangroves, what was good. So this is one technique we can use, especially if there are children. Another thing I notice is, it happens many times with me. When I'm showing them a tree, I stand in front of the tree. So what happens is the rest of the people are far behind. They're not able to appreciate, the tree. So it's always better to walk a little ahead and stop, and then start talking. And there are many tricks I use. I'm a people's person. I have lot of friends from whom I have learned a lot. There are many sitting here who are all my mentors, from a toddler to a super senior. They're all mentors because we can learn a lot from them. So I look back, to move forward. So what I do is I look at a lot of mythology across religions, across nations. They talk about trees. Sometimes it's linked with religion, but there is so much of truth in it. So I look at it like simple thing like bear tree. Now bear is, a sacred tree across religions, right? But why? Because of its medicinal properties. There is a Islamic scholar who says that the leaves are very, good for the hair, for skin problems, and also keeps your head cool, especially in the Middle East where it's hot. So these are little stories and anecdotes I tell them. I was in Rajaji National Forest in Dehradun, where I saw monkeys. I was shocked to see monkeys on the bear tree. And when they were there, below them would be the deer and the peacocks and the birds. They would follow. And because they are very clumsy eaters, the monkeys, half the things they drop. And then they move on. The whole pack of monkeys moves on to the another tree, and all of them follow. So these are little anecdotes from my own experience and from the experience of others, which I narrate, to make things more interesting. So it's good, we should read. When we read and when we talk to people, we learn a lot. Yeah, that's what I want to say, that we need to also make it interesting. Tell them little, anecdotes and little stories, maybe some proverbs, to make the whole experience more, interesting, and something they will remember. They'll remember the tree because of all these associated content which we are passing on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. That also sums up some important tips and how to prepare for your tree walk as well. So thank you so much for summing up it nicely. Jitendra sir, would you please share anything on these lines?
Yeah, actually, as I said, mine is also not only tree walk, but we are calling it nature walk. In fact, we have one group, Nature Walk Vadodara. So it's a WhatsApp group only, and we have more than 1,000 members now. We have also one dedicated Facebook page for that, and around 5, 6 members of ours. Like I am also one of them. We are admin of that WhatsApp group. So what we do, like we move on different places. We definitely take care of that. How many people will be, gathered over there, whether the space is enough or not. So we need to make one Reiki. So before taking, this is like alternate Sunday morning exercise for us to take this nature walk in and around Vadodara. So moment we started, no, we are now repeating even certain places we have repeated, certain water bodies we are revisiting, but every time the same enthusiasm is there. The reason is like we have around 1,000 people in that. So in any given Sunday, there will be more than 100 people. We have also brought in a car pulling concept in that. What our instruction through WhatsApp group, through broadcast WhatsApp group goes is, we will be gathering at this particular point, and from there we will share the car. We'll go to the spot where we have nature walk. But before doing this, we need to do, prior to that nature walk, we have to go get acquainted with the area. We also interact people over there. If suppose there is someone's farmhouse, many times this is happening now. So farmhouse owners, they from their side they come up. They say, आप लोग हमारे यहाँ पे लेकर आइए. We will entertain your group. So many such people with big farmhouses, we enter in that. This Nature Walk Vadodara group enter in that. We understand what are the vegetation is there, what are the special plants are there, there are exotic, indigenous, etc. So whatever botanical aspect I know, I teach them. But as Vijaya ma'am rightly said, I am also connecting those stories. Either there are number of stories available. If you read even Kumar Samba, apna Kalidasa's Shanti Dut, Meghdut Kavyam, or Raghuvansham. So all these scriptures have quite nicely descriptive, Indian trees are there in that. And he has connected, all the trees are mentioned very beautifully in that scripture. So from there also you can give the references, because that makes those audiences interested in the trees that you are showing it to. So we need to make that interesting subject. You will be talking about the phenology of the tree. You will be describing the flower even if they are not there. Then people used to recollect that, and then they will agree and they will appreciate. So this is how we are, taking care of explaining the information of the trees, but with some hands-on also. Many times you have to, draw. I mean, as Madam said, we have to even use pen and pencil many times, because that minute structure is not there. You are able to see the fruit, but if you want to describe how the seed is looking like, whether it is winged or not, if it is capsule or not, how it opens up. So if you are going not matching with that particular seasonality of the tree, you need to explain that on the paper or on the hand. So as much as possible, we try to explain. As Madam said, she is traveling a bit away, and when you are 50, 60, 70 or 100 people looking at one particular tree, not everyone will be positioned to go. But as much as possible, I insist upon go there, touch the trunk, at least you have the feel of leaf, and you try to remember this. So many times, even certain trees, they do have certain order, or certain scents are there. By crushing the leaves, you can make them feel the texture, if it is hairy or not, if it is tomatoes or not. So that sort of things, we make them engaged in with the trees when we are talking about the trees. This is how I'm doing. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
very helpful. Thank you, sir. Kobita, would you please share anything that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, it's just an addition because Vijaya ma'am and sir they both said, a lot about what it should be like. It's not structured precisely, the tree walks. First, we do a recce if we can. Most of the time, we do a recce so that we know what is in bloom or what is fruiting, so that we can visit those plants, because then that is more of interest and people will remember it. Generally, there's a lot going on, so we cannot expect everyone to be interested in everything. The other thing is making connections about nature's connections, right? The insects, the birds that live on it. Children especially love insects, so at any opportunity, we have to be alert. And as soon as we come across something, we see something or hear something, then we start looking at that. We talk about it. So then they are wonderfully engaged. Our groups happen to be generally on the smaller side, so we don't normally have to worry about um, people not being able to hear us or whatever. But we do sometimes carry books, reference books, so that if they want to see the fruit or the leaves, specifically something that they can't see clearly, we can show it to them. But yes, the other thing is, yes, connections are the most important. Relationships, the web of life. I think those are, something that people can remember. So we make it interesting. There are stories to tell. We learn from others, but we have stories because we've been out, and observing these things for a long, long time. And, people just love stories. Any connection made, whether it is a life cycle of a butterfly or an insect or a bug or, something to do with birds. And then the audience themselves, the tree walkers, the attendees of the tree walks, they themselves have stories to tell. So it's a wonderful place to share and connect. So all of these things help in, engaging people, young or old. That's how it is.
Yeah, thank you, Kobita. Shrey, would you say, does this differ very much from the kind of walks that you conduct, which are focused on mushrooms? What would you add to this? You're on mute, Shrey.
Sorry. So yeah, so like as everyone mentioned, more or less the structure is the same, but like for the nature walks in general, like I do not follow a particular structure, but for like mushroom walks, I have a little structure that might help everyone. So I would like to share that. So basically, to prepare for a mushroom walk, I divided into 4 stages. The first stage is the same everyone mentioned. Like I do a recce, first round of recce. I try to involve local volunteers during this first round of recce. And since like mostly I'm working with the school eco clubs, so mostly these volunteers are school teachers. So that's the first stage. And the second stage is where I orient session regarding like where to find mushrooms, how to find mushroom, what are the tools to carry, and most importantly, the safety instructions because there can be poisonous mushrooms as well. So that is the like second stage. Then we go for a guided mushroom walk where we explore and collect few samples of the mushrooms. Like if I'm doing it with the students, then like finally like when we are done with the walk, do a formal closure of the walk by building a small fungarium, which is the collection of our findings in the school biology lab itself. Since like one of my objectives is to introduce local mushrooms to students that they see in their daily life rather than reading about few limited mushrooms that they read in their textbook. Or like if it's an open mushroom walk for the citizens, I share a closure document detailing our findings of the day since like I refrain from giving too much information during the walk. So this is like the fourth stage. And finally, like this year onwards, we are planning to add a stage 5 where we would be building, fruiting calendar for mushrooms that have been spotted. So because the fruiting season of wild plants and even the mushrooms, they are changing with time, and they are like clear indicators of climate change. So that is like how I structure mushroom walks. I'm trying to add more structure to other walks as well, especially bird walks and insect walks and things like these. But yeah, so this is the structure follow for mushroom walks specifically.
That's great. Thank you, Shay. I hope at least some of us will definitely start looking at mushrooms as well, along with the trees and plants that we usually look for. Samarth, could you please share your
Yeah, definitely. So, Sai, responding specifically to your question on organizing tree walks, right? So the first thing which really, really matters to me is understanding the audience, right? So whenever I need to organize a walk, it should be very clear that it's for whom, right? It's for children, it's for adults, it's for a ladies group, it's for some gents army, or what's happening, right? So understanding the audience really, really helps to set your context and help you mentally prepare that, hey, listen, how you're going to deal with the crowd. There are things that you would like to share first, so you can prioritize various things around them. And also, when you understand your audience, you're able to also zero down on a location, right? So the location matters a lot. So the places like for children, you would like to avoid taking them in open sunny areas, areas which have like very difficult topography, that we keep in mind. And when it comes to location, there are trees, right? But also at the same time, not just talking about a tree or a single time. We always revisit the trees that we must have like met half an hour back, right? So it's always good to keep on having a revision around you. At the same time, you're having a tree walk, right? So it is good to go hand in hand, right? Another thing which I keep really in mind, especially with the children, is that I always carry an equipment, right? So that fascinated, image of a scientist and a naturalist stays on with children. So a binoculars or a magnifying glass really makes a lot of difference. And believe me, that's the most famous thing on the walk, right? A magnifying glass or a bino. Just imagine looking at, even if it's a leaf gall, right? Children would really like to look at it in a really 10x size, even if it's the really small lenses from where the trees are extending the gases. If you look at it with a magnifying glass, that really helps. So look, carrying tools which naturalists use is also good exposure to the people who are attending the walk. Definitely, the walks need to be experiential. The walks are all about experience. They don't have to be always a monologue, right? You can simply interact, love, laugh, right, and feel a lot of things. I remember that the beautiful calendra bushes that are there in a lot of parks in Delhi, right? You can always come and brush the flowers along your cheeks. You have that shaving brush like feeling, which children and people young and old really, really enjoy. One of the last things which I really keep in mind is the action which needs to follow after the walk. So after, say, a power packed time span of 1.5 to 2 hours where the walk is happening, the walk needs to really come to a conclusion. And that conclusion is something which season watch really helps us to be. So we can say them always that, hey, now our walk has ended, but you can still come again and keep on exploring. And there are apps like season watch where you can actually document your finding, your observation, and they're the ones which can guide you. At the same time, people talked about WhatsApp groups, right? This is something which is really convenient and easy these days to communicate, bring people together. And not just WhatsApp groups, but also social media. Any social media platform is a great tool. So using a bit of social media, using a bit of people skills, and using a bit of tools like magnifying glass, which are really easy to carry around, can make a lot of difference in making works really interactive and people. And also one last thing which I really forgot was the timing of the walk. So timing means the month and the time slot of the day. So they have to be very beautifully managed. Like these days, we are belonging to New Delhi, our forests are actually full of pioneer butterflies. Right, so we try to manage the walk-ins at a slot where we are. It's not too hot, but also at the same time it's warm enough for butterflies to come out and flutter. Right, so that certainly keeps us, guides us to how to manage and organize a walk, and that's how we follow in the duration. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I really liked what everybody told, about the structuring and, about the recce, because recce is very, very important for trees. So you know where the flowers, what is flowering, what is in bloom, and how to maneuver your walk, how to go from place to place, which are your different stations, which you're going to stop and talk about. I really enjoyed, what others were talking about. It was excellent. What when people talking, normally what I like to do is give children some tips on the end result of the plant. Suppose I'm front of a laburnum and the flowers are there. So I tell them, very simple culinary tricks. How you can make bhajiyas out of the flowers, or how you can make like gulkand, amalkand. So these are little. Or when I come to this adulsa plant, because during COVID and all, there's so much of talk about cough thing. A simple thing, how to make a kada, very simple kada with it. It's a cough syrup, or nirgundi. Everybody loves Cleopatra. And Nirgundi is known as Cleopatra's bath salts. So these are little things I tell them. You have a grandmother or mother who's got some aches and pains, just put it in hot water, she'll feel relieved. So this is another thing. And normally at the end of the walk, I like to ask, the children what they have seen. But one thing is, you shouldn't wait too long for them to answer, because it gets very boring to the rest. If they don't answer, sometimes you have to give the answer or move to another person. This is very important. Don't wait too long for an answer. That is the thing. And sometimes a quiz, asking them questions and a little quiz. So, or sometimes children come up with songs. And some of my friends, I have them who make these beautiful bird calls, so they're there along, with us. So all these little interesting things you need to introduce to make your walks, lively. It's very important. As they were saying, laughter is very important. When you're out, you must give a free rein to yourselves, not be serious. So laughters to how trees. So these are little things we need to work. Before doing anything, before going for a walk, it's important that we prepare. We must be well prepared, because if you read about 10 different things, you may answer or you may talk about only 4, but you're always ready to answer any questions. You need not answer. You can always say that I'll come back to you and carry some books. Books are excellent to carry, but carry light books, because having the load on you is also very tough. I think I really enjoyed listening to all of you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Jitendra sir, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, actually, nature work that we conduct here, is basically for say families. Okay, most of the time the people they are young students. I do conduct say river walk for them. Those are school children or college, even college going students, especially students from journalism faculty. Every year I have one or two such walk with them on our river, because we are also being community science center. We do talk about rejuvenation of the river Vishwamitra, which is going across our city from dividing into two. So we talk about how to rejuvenate, what are the factors about that. So journalism, what I feel is environmental journalism is very important subject, which is being neglected. And that is how very wrong kind of environmental perceptions are being expressed in our daily newspapers. If you see, if you listen to any channel, I bet that they are not talking the truth or real science in that. When they talk about climate, it's altogether different climate that you never imagine in your classes, or what we have been taught, and what we are learning. So similar mistakes are also there coming up in your newspaper. So for environmental science kind of education, this journalism student, I do take them. There are BSc students also that they many times come into number of 15 or 25 or 30. So those are different kind of walk altogether. But for school children, again, river walks are there, because in our river we have quite a good diversity. So I do explain them about the, why those crocodiles are basking at present, what are the times, how they are facing eastern kind of, banks, how they are facing western banks, at what time you will find them on the western side of banks. So what are those things, how the sunlight is playing important role for the basking of reptiles. And then how it happens, like even though you are not taking actually to the nest, but then you are explaining how, what are the temperature barriers those are, rather putting in their population control, male, female, at what temperature they come up with the eggs. So these are the kind of natural information, real information that we pass on to the children. But while this conducting, as madam said, some songs, many times this happens, and that comes from, those audience itself. Many times audience will suggest you. So even school children, they come up, sir, can I read one poem that I have written on neem tree, on mango tree? So those type of, spontaneous kind of responses, those are not been planned even in your tree work. But we have to entertain that, because it should be always interactive and easy learning way. Whenever you are delivering about the trees or any natural science for that matter, whenever you are talking about that, you need to be very much interactive and enthusiastic to listen to each and everyone, and then giving in information, adding on information to their understanding. So this is how I am looking at my tree walk. Another interesting subject that we talk, as we are also worried about the trees and then the seasonality, we need to carry the same kind of set of children to the trees wherein they are in flowering stage, if they are in fruiting stage or leaflessness. So those deciduous trees are being exposed to them. So this type of small information brings in more curiosity about the nature, about the trees, and then they real become, good observer also. This type of children, once you expose them why the leaves are small, or new flushes are there at this particular time of the year, and how they will grow over the period of say season, one season or two season, and again they will fall down in the winter. So what happens is how their biology is changing. So those information you can give, but simultaneously you can take similar kind of children, similar batch to those same trees, and then you can make the differences. So this type of experiments we do carry. But again, as I said, it is very much, availability of the school children should be there. Then spontaneously some activity coming up. So at that time you need to be very active. Of course, we need to have more information about the trees than the what is going to come in your way, and that is how Reiki is very important. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That was very helpful. Kobita, do you have anything other than the points covered already? Would you like to share? You're on mute. Sorry, Kobita.
sorry. The takeaway that people have is different, on all tree walks. But when we deal with our children, that is the school children, because through the academic we're taking activity plans for the children, so they have an opportunity to see the trees through the seasons. We have a lot of trees in school itself, and then we do take them to a park as well. But so the reiteration about seasonality, or the flowers and the fruits happens through the year, but we don't. It just is very informal. It's not extremely structured, and their takeaway therefore is different. Of course, most of the time we are looking at flowers, touching the leaves, smelling things, and then when adults accompany us, of course, many of them take pictures and photographs, and they want to know later on what those particular plants were, whether they're herbaceous plants or grasses or anything else of interest. So, so one is the senses. When it speaks to our senses, any tree, flower, plant, whatever, it sticks. So that's something that we find, they retain those, that information or those characteristics. And then the WhatsApp group helps because people take pictures, or they want they want further identification, or people in the group discuss something about the plant, so that helps as well. So it's nice if there is a group, and you can take it further. But yeah, I mean, that's about what ours is. We don't have any major takeaway. But the school children, yes, they have quizzes and further discussions on plants, whether it's deciduous or some a seasonal, when they flower, and all of these things. Sometimes we do specific activities like seed-based activities, or we also point out textures, or we point out things that we can make from nature, objects. So we have a show and tell. So these are the things, so they make their connections. We talk about dispersal. Again, it's a reiteration. When they go out and see the plants, they can say, which ones sort of disperse with explosion, which ones can disperse by air, things like that, or animals. So the takeaways are different, and it happens, for children it's different, for adults it's different.
Right. Thank you, Kobita. Shrey, would you like to add any other activities? I'm sure you have something very unique that you do in your walks, so please share.
So yes, so more or less the activities are same that everyone shared, but few more things that I would like to add is like one activity that I surely include during nature walks, especially when the walks are with children, is that um, I refrain from using the scientific or the Latin names, because no one like children of course tend to forget them, and I do not I ask them that don't carry a notepad or a pen along, because anyways after the session we do share the details of the findings. So I come up with very funny names for the findings that we get. So things like, for example, do you know this mushroom is called witch's butter, and this mushroom is called hoof fungus, and this mushroom is called lakdi ka jhumka. So these names actually the children, they remember these names. So, and this also engages the children. So I use like fun names and avoid using the Latin names. And also, like, one very interesting thing that I'd like to share, and like might be helpful for everyone, is that like recently we have like curated a game. It's called like marking ecosystem hotspots. So basically the idea is to build curiosity for the participants for a species outside its fruiting season. So for example, if I'm doing a mushroom walk outside monsoons, because mushrooms are there in monsoons only, right? So maybe like I'll share my screen, that will help better understand this. Uh, so this is like the game that I'm talking about. So what we do is basically we do a pre-monsoon ecosystem identification work. The idea is we tell these children about the areas where the probability of finding mushrooms is the highest. So we ask them to make these tags, and they tag everywhere where they are expecting to find mushrooms. Mostly it's around the trees. So we tell them like mushrooms are symbiotic with the trees. Look in the shady areas and things like these. And so they basically tag wherever they think mushrooms will be there in the monsoon. And also it keeps the curiosity alive. So after a few months we take them back to the same area, same group of students. So this is the activity. We just tried it once, but we got amazing results. So like mushrooms will be there, and which is the ideal hotspot. Mushrooms are actually growing, and so these students, they became really fascinated with it. So this is like one activity which we tried, and I would encourage everyone to try this activity. Like this is like a very interesting activity to do a nature walk outside the fruiting season also. So yeah, thank you.
This was lovely. Thank you, Shrey. Samarth, would you have anything to add to this topic, please?
Yeah, when it comes to organizing some games, right, out in the wild, when the children or even adults are attending a walk, making them sit and organizing a game becomes really a challenge. But what we certainly try to integrate some, entertaining exercises during the course of walk. So, like to give an example, there are some fruits which give blue and purple color. To name a few, they are like Phonolum nigrum or the Philanthus reticulata, right? So these have, there it is a very nice purplish violet colored dye. You can actually make some nice tattoos on your hands or your cheeks or your faces, head, anywhere, basically you want. So one can go around making tattoos out of the natural dyes, which the fruits may yield very easily. The second activity that we do at times in the walks organized in public parks is that we try to, after when we reach, conclude the walk, we ask the students to go out, explore the surroundings, run around, right, and bring in stuff and create something out of that. So the rule is that you don't pluck anything, right? So a lot of times, as expected by you all, it is mostly plastic. So you end up also cleaning that, right? So you pick up all that you see on the ground. You try to create some or the other figure. At times, that children recreating their whole experience, recreating some thoughts, recreating their favorite cartoon character or the favorite cricketer that they may feel like, right? So that's how you use your surroundings and create some kind of art out of that. And when I talk about cricketer, there are certain trees that are found in our landscape which are used to make bats, right? So we always have this one Virat Kohli tree which we talk about, right? So people can never ever forget that, right? So that certainly plays a part of the works that at least I have conducted.
Dr. Chitra asked was for Kobita actually. In your Reiki, do you keep to only trees or also other plants? And do you give importance to native trees? And all of you also can share what you prefer to do in your tree walks.
Yes, yes. I do give importance to the herbaceous plants as well as the grasses, but mostly it is trees because something big, something striking, and one takes more notice of these things, especially if they're flowering, fruiting, or if there are interesting seeds. Yes, but when you're walking in the wild, it is everything. Everything is given importance, especially the seasonal plants, because we have these stunning landscapes, rocky areas. So there it is always the small plants which get more attention than the big ones. So yeah, and native trees are always the things. We've done things like Polash Trail, which is the flame of the forest. We have lots of them in our region. So we've done things, Sadhana and me have done things like, taking people along. We go by cars, we stop and admire the trees wherever we see them, those sort of things. We do tree trails as well, these kind of things. But, yes, the importance is on trees, native trees, if they're around, definitely, yes.
Great. Would any of the panelists like to add to this?
It's very important, to know what to plant, and what not to plant. So when you're talking about, there are many invasive, because of this plant blindness, we look at everything green and we appreciate greenery without realizing that this plant is damaging to the ecosystem. Like subabul. I remember, somebody told me plant 1,000 acres of subabul. I didn't know at that time the subabul is dangerous, invasive. But we need to learn. We need to come to know about it. So avoid planting these things and use your keystone species. Everybody was talking about keystone species yesterday when we had a discussion. It's very important because ficus and all, they bring back the biodiversity to the land. But where to plant, that is also important. So if you're planting in your own yard, you need to plant something which is small, the small tree, small size tree, like a laburnum, maybe a parijat, something which doesn't grow very big. If you want to put a tamarind or a banyan or people, then you need to find an appropriate place for it. Or you want to put something like thespesia or a barringtonia. These are water loving plants. Many of them are also mangrove associates. So you need to, it's a riparian system, ecosystem which they require. So you need to decide and learn. See, because if you are going for walks, people are going to ask you, after you go for 2-3 walks, people start consulting you. What shall I plant in my garden? So you should learn, when you're walking, what to plant and what not to plant. I think that is very important. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm sure we all have a lot to talk about ficuses as we did in our discussion before we did this session. But since we're a little short on time, I won't talk much about plantations or the plantation activity because this focus is on, again, tree walks and not tree identification, neither on tree plantations. But maybe we'll have another discussion for this, and you could also approach the panelists individually to ask them about these questions. So moving on to the next question that Ved has asked. It was for Samarrth when you mentioned carrying binos and hand lenses. What are such other tools that you can carry or that may come handy?
Yeah, so it's actually very difficult to take a lot of instruments, right? So it's actually the binos and the magnifying glass, which you can easily put it in your pocket. And even if you go to the various jewelry shops, there's also this jeweler's loop, which you can really fit in your key ring, right? So these are very small things which one can carry to quickly have a closer look at the thing. So that's also no out of the box instrument which is really tough to look at and carry. They should not be carried at all. So simple magnifying glasses, jeweler's loop, and a bino which you can just put around your neck is I think very good enough for any kind of nature walk it may be.
Also adding to this and also promoting season watch resources, we have some pocket guides that come very handy when talking about some trees. And Panelist also discussed earlier that you can carry some books and some pictures to show people the finer details of things that you can't really see on field. So such pocket guides come very handy. Season Watch has produced one such pocket guide, and you can check it out on our website later on. Also, something that helps is, the activity sheets, like a bingo sheet that you can make for yourself as well. But Nature Classrooms has created such bingo sheets that can be referred to. And this can also double as something that you can look for, but also a game that you can do with your participants. I just wanted to add that quickly. Next question that we have is Vidya said that it's a little difficult to remember names, and would anyone have any tips maybe to help people and also yourself to remember names of trees? Would anyone like to take this question?
Yeah, I would
You
like to answer that. Like, this is a common like a thing that people tend to forget these, like, because Latin names are complex and people might forget. So what I do is I always share common names or the general names rather than scientific names. People remember those names, like not just children but also adult. It works with them because like this is something that I was doing initially, sharing the Latin names and all these long names. But then I realized that it's better to share easy common names. You can also try to come up with the name which is which depicts the morphology of that particular species. So you can even invent the name. So that's how people at least like remember that species is like what I would like to add.
Exactly, I would say in the same line. See, you can give the name. You can very well give your own name. There is no harm in doing that. See, that is very much kind of stigma. If you carry, if you are using only botanical name, then only you have the correct kind of information. That is misconcept, I should say. See,
Yes.
botanical names are important for those who are into research. If you have tree love and if you are naming them, rather than identifying and giving and remembering and mugging up the botanical names, which are very long, you have very short names. For example, I can tell you, there is one tree, Holoptelia integrifolia. If you write the spelling of it, it is huge. All alphabets are there, A to Z. But if you name it, like Kanjo is the name in Gujarati. So remembering Kanjo tree, and there is no other tree named as Kanjo. Kanjo is Oloptelia always. So that way you can make them understand that by using your own mother tongue, local native language, local name, because they are different, they are not overlapping, they never overlap. So just to remember local name and then go into, if you are interested, then go into the scientific name, because scientific name does have some history. They have some relevance from where that name has originated. So then it is up to your interest, because that is also a different kind of publication altogether. Those who are interested in name, Azad directa indica is the name of neem tree. So Azad Darakht, ye hai Persian name. Azad matlab free, whichever, wherever it grows. And Darakht is the tree. So Persian name say Aza directa indica. Indica is Indian origin. So नीम का ट्री है, उससे अच्छा है नीम ही याद रखो, इतना बड़ा नाम याद रखने से. तो ये एक समझने की बात है. You can take the interest and make this interesting also. But
Yeah.
then being botanist, I can tell that there is no need to really mugging up and confusing your own self rather than loving that tree.
Right, right. On this line, actually, Archana TP shared one observation or some experience that she attended a tree walk in Bangalore and they explained botanical names of plants in an interesting way, something what Jitendra sir just mentioned. So doing that and breaking up those names and telling what each part means also helps you also to remember the names and also others. Archana, if you could share the name of this resource person, we could get them to discuss how they do it and what are the resources that they use for finding meanings of names. Thank you so much for that. So next question that we have is, how do you sustain, from Badri Narayan, how do you sustain interest in recurring consecutive walks uh, because we've already discussed the common trees in the past and we meet the same common ones repeatedly. This is something that we sort of addressed before, but by observing seasonally changing phenomena in the same landscape is something that you can do. But if panelists have anything more to add to that, it would be great.
You don't disclose everything at the same time. You keep something for the next time. But you need to learn more. If you're doing the same walk again, you need to update yourself. So it's very important that resource people constantly update. We get new information to make it more interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I totally agree with what Vijaya said. We just keep reading. We are out experiencing more on our own. And all of these elements actually help the subsequent walks. There's always something fresh. There's always something new. And you just go with what's out there. Nature is the greatest guide, you just pick up on what there is. So basically you have to be immersed. You have to have the enthusiasm and you have to have the knowledge. Yes, but enthusiasm and your passion has to come through, and you can never go wrong. Literally, I mean, you can just take a whole bunch of people as many times as possible. But yes, seasons matter. So go out at different seasons. There's always something interesting. And of course, different areas matter, whether you're going to a rocky area, to the plains, you're going to a park. We visited some of our parks several times. Sometimes the same people, but always the people, the audience also differs, right? So there's always something new. There's always an element of surprise. There's always something new. So
I would also like to add a little bit that for that question, when it comes to the commonly occurring tree, it should be not always you who talk about trees in a tree walk. So there might be some more people in the group who would have
Yes.
come, in the previous walk maybe. So they may share how do they now look at the tree in a certain space. So that becomes really important, that there can be also people from other parts of the city or the other parts of the country that would have come in your state or your city where the walk is being organized. It's always good to hear how maybe the tree is behaving in their landscape and how it is different here. How other people are also looking at stories. So the stories also greatly differ, right? So the place where I take walks in Delhi and NCR, the stories of trees very different from what happens down south. It's always interesting to have people from that part of the country in the walks, during the walk, when they share that, hey, listen, this is what we do there. And there is always like, hey, listen, this is what we do here. So that becomes a nice relation, something common to discuss. So the tree walk is never a monologue. So you have a discussions among the participants, and it's always a healthy discussion that goes on.
Totally agree with Samarrth. It's always a discussion. It's always a conversation, actually. So it's always
exchange. It is always exchange.
Always
Then
exchange.
you deliver on, ultimately you have to take up the session, what you want to explain. But earlier you need to have that space to listen to others also. That is how we are doing. And then many times, like I can give one or two kind of tips for our walk. Many times you can ask them to close the eyes and just listen. Just listen. There will be wind, there will be birds chirping. Just listen to that and then try to identify which word was there. That sort of thing. Even from one tree to another tree, you can go and stand there, close your eyes, and you can make out the difference in the wind that blows through the leaves. So those type of experiences also you can encourage. Like you can inculcate this all.
This was beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I've lost the track of questions, but there was one very interesting question that even I have for all of you actually. How many trees do you talk about in 1 or 2 hour session, and how much distance also you plan to cover in your tree walks?
Uh, it depends on where you are going, first of all, how the tree distribution is there in that area. That also is a very important kind of aspect. And then many times what happens, because it is not been, you cannot disseminate that I will give 2 or 3 minutes to each and every tree. No, many times it takes longer time because it is conversation rather than one way information. It is not one way mode, it is two way. So many times some trees they took around 7 to 8 minutes or 10 minutes. Then you will come up with some 30 to 40 species for 2 hours tree walk. But then if you are, on move, if you want to deliver more and faster, then you can definitely cover more. That is what it is. Anyone of us can tell about more about
I think it also depends on the age group of your, whom you're conducting the walk with. Because today I find that there are a lot of seniors who are coming for walks, to be with nature. So their pace of walking is far slower. They're not able to keep up. So we have to meet their standards. Sometimes you have children, who get very excited. So when you're having children, always see that there is their caregiver with them. They should not just leave the kids and you're taking care. They should be a caregiver, their teachers, because they know the tricks, the teachers. I've seen many times they clap their hand and make them do 1 or 2 exercises, and the kids are all attention. So these are little tricks we have to learn from the teachers also. I think finally it also depends on the age group of the people you're taking for a walk.
Right. Anyone else to add to that?
I think
Yeah,
it
I'd
really
like to.
helps to when you actually go very slow. Right, so going slow, I think, is the key. It's actually okay to spend 15 minutes looking at that little spider hiding behind that bark of the amartath tree. So people don't mind, and also it's completely fine to pick up that ladybird on that grass leaf, and that grass blade, and allow it to move around your hand. So that kind of experience, coming back to, as the panel also discussed, it's all about the experience, right? The way the group wants it, right? At the end of the day, we are all there to inculcate and sow the seed of that love towards the trees, towards the landscape and the nature. So that comes by going really, really slow.
Sure, you were also
Yeah,
saying something.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Samarthya said. So, like, it also depends upon what is the objective of the nature walk we are planning. So, if you really want to just inculcate, empathy and these kinds of like values in the audience, like sometimes it's like I also always recommend to walk very briskly and slowly during the nature walk. And some of the excellent nature walks that we've just covered the 1/3 of the planned passage. So it was just 1/3 of a part of the track that we covered, but in the end it's also like, as there's a quote also, it is the journey that matters and not the destination. So we are completely aligned with what Samarthya said. Yeah.
That's great to know. I also would like to add one thing is just because you know what age group is attending or you know what your aim is from the walk, that doesn't mean you confine yourself when you're doing a Reiki. I suggest like you do Reiki for how much ever long you can and cover as much area as possible so that in case things go wrong or plans change during your session, then you're prepared to go for a longer distance than you planned as well. So I guess that should be helpful. And there are some questions about resources, apps that you can use for identifying plants and stuff like that. And since we're running out of time now, I suggest all of us can pool these resources together and share on the group. So, lastly, before I close this session and start, saying goodbyes, I want to let you know that the India Tree Walks network is open, and if you plan to conduct tree walks or want to be in touch with Kobita, Samarrth, Shrey, and also Vijaya ma'am. Jitendra sir, you're not in the group yet, but I hope you also join the group soon. We have a WhatsApp group of all these people and many more. There are about 130 people, 156 people in fact across India who conduct tree walks in their own regions. And they keep sharing plant information, ask IDs of different plants they find around them. And a lot of exchange happens in these groups. Vijaya ma'am would like to say anything.
I think one needs to, inculcate in the children a sense of wonder and curiosity. I think Samarth and Shrey, they were talking about curiosity, which is very, very important. Then only they will explore and experiment. So sense of wonder, which is disappearing, getting extinct now, and sense of curiosity is something I think we resource people must, bring about in everybody, youth, children.
Hands down, agree with you, Vijaya. Wonder, that is
Yes,
what keeps.
sense of wonder. I think nothing like nature for sense of wonder. If we
It's
can
like
do that with the youngsters, then our mission is done.